Right off the bat, you're gonna notice that this guy looks cool. I mean, look at this faceplate. Look at the Chinese writing here. It just looks badass, you know what I mean? It looks like it's something that came straight out of Street Fighter. The controller looks great, and it feels really solid as well. No creaking or cracking or anything like that. Even though it's a solidly built controller, it's pretty light, so you'll be able to play this for long periods of time. And in terms of size, this is a medium-sized controller. So this Fightpad is significantly smaller than the Ryan right here, as you can see. And then you go down to the M30 here, and this guy is smaller still. If you feel that the M30 is too small, or the Ryan is too big, then this would be the perfect size for you. The controller works on a few systems. Right here you see PC 360. Now don't be fooled, this does not work on the Xbox. All this means is it'll work on PC with X input. And then we have PC, so this is direct input. BFM, that is for Android, and it'll also work on the PS3 and certain PS4 games. You can also find the two grips on the back here, and I think it looks cool, but it's not very useful. Like, why would you put the grip back here versus on the handles? Now, this controller also supports turbo functionality. The turbo feature only works on the face buttons and these guys right here. It does not work with the D-pad. So this is really only useful for maybe retro games. Alright, let's go around the controller and talk about the buttons. Let's start with the face buttons. These face buttons are really tactile and clicky. I'll show you what I mean. Now this is really surprising because the switches here are plastic dome-based switches, and yet it's really tactile still. You can really feel it. This is pretty close to the Xbox controller. Check this out. And these are metal-based switches. In terms of feel and tactility, this is probably one of the best feeling face buttons that I've ever used. Of course, as you can see here, this controller has a 6-button layout. What this means is the A and the Y button is slightly offset, right? It's not like a diamond shape. Also, the X and the B is slightly off-center. If you're somebody who's really used to the diamond shape of these face buttons, it's gonna take some time for you to get used to the off-center nature of a 6-button layout controller. Another thing that I really love about these face buttons is that they're on the smaller side, so they're not huge. Check out these buttons on the Razer, they're gigantic. So this is more manageable. So on this controller, if you want to go from here to here, it's like so far apart. And on something like the M30, the face buttons are different sizes. So the upper row here are a lot smaller than the A, B, C buttons down here. They're not consistent. They feel really strange to me. But these are the same size. They're not too big, they're not too small. They're just perfect. These are great face buttons. Now let's talk about the D-pad. This D-pad is really good. It's a floating D-pad, as you can see here. Now this guy is really cool. You can take it off. There we are. You can see the stem right here, and it just goes right in that little hole right there. Now you may be wondering, why is this detachable like that? Well, the reason being is it comes with 2 of these D-pads. Look at this. Isn't that cool? I've played with both of them and I think they're both great. Let's start with the crush-shaped D-pad. This D-pad is great for motion input. What this means is it's going to be good for any 2D fighting games, really. Super easy to do. Yeah! I'm not sure if you can see this, but the cross is barely raised against this plate right here. So you're able to go through the motions here really easy without any friction at all. In terms of motion input, this guy is one of the best that I've ever used. Straight directions, right? Up, down, left, right. It's pretty good. Diagonal is also pretty good, but since the surface is pretty flat, so you kind of lose a little bit of a feel. However, you do get used to it though over time. Now comparing this D-pad to this funky looking one, immediately you notice that the surface area of this D-pad here is a lot greater than this D-pad here. So if you're somebody with really big thumbs, I would recommend using this. But if you have smaller thumbs, maybe this guy's the way to go. This guy's also very good. I'll show you what I mean. Here we are. This diamond shaped D-pad here really excels at directionals and also diagonals as well, because there's a lot of feel to it. You really feel where you are when you move your thumb around because of the edges here. So for example, if I want to do up forward, my thumb literally rests on this little cutout here. A lot of D-pads would give me trouble with like up forward and up, right? Because they're so close to each other. But with this D-pad, I know exactly where I'm pressing. Up forward. Look at that, it's just so good. Now in terms of motion inputs, it's not as good, and because of the sharp edges here, it does hurt your finger a little bit, but it's not bad at all actually. So if you can deal with a little bit of discomfort in terms of the sharp edges here, this is a very good D-pad. I would say this D-pad is probably better for 3D fighting games. And this guy here is better for 2D fighting games or for fat thumbs and skinny thumbs. Because this is a floating D-pad, so this thing acts as like a joystick really. It's gotta move in different directions to activate. Double taps, or when you have to mash the D-pads really quickly, is not as fast as something like this guy where it's a dome-based switch, where all you need to do is just press down and it'll activate. With this guy, it has to move first before it activates. So it's a split second slower on this controller versus this controller. We also got the turbo feature here. To use it, you just press it and hold it, and then let's say press an X, right? And then now if you press and hold X, look at that. To clear it, you just press and hold clear, right? And then press X. I don't find the turbo buttons really useful, to be honest with you. I would much prefer that they replace this feature with a mapping feature where you can remap any buttons anywhere. And speaking of remapping, okay, back here you can see there's two choices, right? So left button and right button. So if I switch this guy over here, so they switch. On this side it'll become the right button and the right trigger, and this side is going to become the left button and the left trigger. These extra buttons will always remain right button and right trigger, so you cannot change this. This is why I would prefer a mapping feature instead of a turbo feature. And then you'll also find next to it is a left stick and a D-pad switch, right? So if I switch it over here, it'll be the left stick. Maybe there are some games that does not support D-pad, so you have to use the switch for it. Maybe some retro games perhaps. But yeah, in terms of just fighting games, I don't notice any difference at all between the two. The shoulder buttons are nice and clicky. You can activate these shoulder buttons on either side, but it's a lot more difficult to activate them on this end versus the inner end. I really wish that it was easier to press it from this end so I can activate these buttons with my knuckles. Now you may be thinking, why would you want to press these buttons with your knuckles? Well, take a look at this. So I'm holding the controller normally, and the shoulder buttons are too short. So the tip of my finger is not hitting the buttons. Right? So wouldn't it be nice if I can activate them using my knuckles? But these are really hard to press. These buttons either need to be moved inward a little bit more, or they need to be longer. Now with that being said though, there is a way around this, and that is to play claw. And I really feel that this controller is meant and designed to play like this. Now this is a lot more natural and comfortable to me. I don't really want to end the video on a downer like this. This is really the only issue I have with this controller. You can get used to it, and I did get used to it over time. But overall, this controller is awesome. I really truly think it's a great looking controller. It's a great playing controller. It's pretty responsive. The D-pad is on point. It's not as quick or responsive as a dome-based Switch, but the trade-off is you get great motion inputs. This is probably one of the best ever. The face buttons are awesome and tactile. I love these guys. And it's just a badass looking controller. Check this out. You know what would be cool is if this thing was interchangeable, if they have like additional faceplates that you can replace with. The only thing I would modify about this controller is moving the shoulder buttons here closer toward the middle. I would change the turbo feature to a mapping feature. And it's not a big deal, but I would move the grip toward the handle. This is without a doubt one of the best fight pads that you can buy out there. Alright, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe for more, and take care now.